I just appreciate everybody.
Watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's going on with you, Hawk? What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of Trap or Dive podcast provided to you by 214 Media. I am your host, Mual, Hand Dog Mual, Coach Mual, Jamal Forrest, all that good stuff. AJ and Dre is on the way. What's going on, Monty? Appreciate you checking in. Corey, what's going on, Big Dog? Appreciate you checking in. Listen, man. We got some news. We finally got some news. I guess I'm gonna save the Super Bowl talk for when AJ and Dre get here. But I'm gonna go ahead and dive right into the conversation. Give me 2 seconds. So we have some news, man. Greg Roman interviewed for the offensive coordinator position this past Tuesday, a couple of days. What's today? Wednesday. So yesterday, interview for the OC job, and now we have a confirmation from Ian Rappaport, I think, who broke the news first, that Eric Bieniemy will be interviewing for the opening tomorrow. I'm interested, man, and I think for all of the reasons that Ron Rivera. Now, stick with me. That Ron Rivera was interested in Carson Wentz. I think there's some. It leads me to believe that Eric Bieniemy will be his guy. And here's what I mean by that. I'm not comparing skill sets, but I do think that Ron Rivera has this knack for believing in the people who aren't believed in, who aren't up to par from other people's standards, from the majority standards, and from his actions with Carson Wentz. And I don't want to make a big revelation out of it, but in my head, it kind of draws some type of parallels in the sense of, everybody, a lot of people had some negative things to say about Carson Wentz, whether they were right or wrong. That's besides the point. But Ron Rivera was very much aware of it. Ron Rivera went against the grain and said, I don't care what any of you all are talking about. We come across Carson Wentz. And while there may be some nuance in that discussion, right, that it may be possible that Carson Wentz wasn't 100% his idea, I like to believe that it was. He stood on it. He got very overly emotional after that Chicago game when he mentioned he stood on the table for him, right? He banged the table. He did the analytics. I kind of tend to believe that's the majority of his decision. I think that when you think about Eric Bieniemy, and let me go ahead and add in the good man Dre. What's going on with you, Dre? How you feeling?
It's good, Mo. How you feeling, man? Everything good?
Yes, sir, man. I'm doing good, big dog. I'm doing good, man. I'm glad we finally got some news on the table. I was making this kind of sentiment in how, obviously, as we know, okay, bet AJ just got in too. Let's make sure AJ set up first. And then we'll bring him in. But I was giving this sentiment that I had felt like the parallels from Ron's decision making between Carson Wentz and the idea of Eric Bieniemy, I don't think is too distant. And what I mean by that is not necessarily comparing their skill set, but I think that like Ron Rivera probably has this idea in his head that he can go acquire, or he can believe in the people who aren't believed in. And I think that for a lot of reasons he took Carson Wentz, there may be some similar feelings behind the idea of taking Eric Bieniemy and saying, I want to give you this opportunity. And while everything, and there's more nuanced discussion underneath that umbrella and underneath that conversation, I do think that Rivera probably sees Eric Bieniemy as I want to be the one who believed in him And I want to be I want to show that I believe in him, and I want people to understand that you all messed up by not taking Eric Bieniemy and giving him the freedom to do what he needs to do on that offensive side. Furthermore, the freedom to or the proof to show that he's worth being a head coach. And I think AJ said it. We'll go ahead and add him in. But what do you think about this idea of Bieniemy in Washington?
I mean, that's a good point, Maul. It's kind of like a Ron's redemption story, so to speak. Because, like you said, I mean, last year it may have been a little different with Carson Wentz because everyone already had their pre-populated opinions about Carson Wentz because he had just got shunned by 2 teams. So Ron was kind of hoping for this, I can bring this guy redemption thing, and it blew up in his face. So not only is he going to have to get rid of Carson Wentz, he also had to fire his offensive coordinator Scott Turner, who another one of those risky moves that if he would have looked good, Ron would have looked like a genius, but it blew up in Ron's face. So this is kind of like Ron's last stand here. And I mean, not even with just, choosing the offensive coordinator, as we all know it, this is probably Ron's last stand in the NFL at all. So Ron, he knows it. I mean, he's not a stupid man either. Even though he tries to play stupid or play us for stupid sometimes, Ron is not stupid. He knows the writing is on the wall for himself. So he has to go out with a bang in a sense. And Eric Bieniemy is that bang. I mean, he's the guy that, he has the experience. He's been there, but he has that chip on his shoulder, that edge, and he's also coming with that kind of baggage, so to speak, even though it's not as big as Carson Wentz's baggage, but he has this baggage. People are coming out saying, why hasn't Eric Bieniemy gotten a job? He goes on all these head coaching interviews and no one wants to hire him. So, there's that behind him. So this is another thing that, if it does blow up and it doesn't work, this is Ron's last stake in the heart for him. So this has to work, but he figured, like I said, he took the chance on Carson. He took the chance on Scott Turner. Now he has to go with someone who's kind of proven. He has a great reputation as far as, amongst people in Ron's age group, like the Andy Reids and everything. And this is another reason why I think Ron is so high on Eric Bieniemy as well. They come from the same era. So, they come from the 80s era. So a lot of people may look at Eric Bieniemy and say, oh, he's too hard on the guys. Ron probably looks at him as, okay, I'm used to that type. This is the coach I want on my staff. And, I can bring Eric Bieniemy on and we can have success together. So you got to think that's what he's thinking. But again, like I just said, like you said, Maul, Ron has to know the writings on the wall. And this is his last big move.
What's going on with you, AJ? How you feeling, big dog?
I'm doing okay. The allergies starting to kick my ass off.
Whooping your head, bro. I don't like that.
It just started though. Like that's the crazy part. But either way, I'm good, man. How about y'all?
I'm all right, man. I can't complain. Look, football season. It's crazy because like I don't remember ever like a time where I felt weird that football is continuing. XFL starts Saturday, like, and I would have thought we had like a week or 2 off, but like we're rolling, and USFL is in April.
So you watching these leagues, Mo?
I don't know. I'm interested. It's like why? Like every time I find a reason to like step away from the TV with like sports or at least football, like they draw me back in, and I got plans on Saturday, which is fine. I'm going to the plans, but it's like. I wonder if the product is good enough to like make me question if I should go.
But something that I thought about, this might be the first time that one of these alternate leagues can have success. And I say that because the betting era is here. Like betting is pretty much legal everywhere. So people are going to bet on these games, and that's going to draw interest to these games. And eventually people are going to start picking up on some teams or liking some teams, and they may have some standard success. Like I said, it's never happened before. I mean, the closest thing was the 80s with the USFL league, but that's coming back, like you said, in April with the XFL. So with the betting era going on now, these leagues might have some staying power, man.
Look, I hope so, bro. I really do, because that means we're not bored. Or let me be clear, I'm not bored from goddamn May up until. I mean, I know the finals is on, but that's the end of the NBA season. But like May up until like August, like I need something. I need something. AJ, we were talking about Bieniemy to kick things off, and I guess like the nature of the conversation where Dre was coming from and where I initiated. I had an idea in my head. Well, I guess I like your overall thoughts, but I felt like in the way Dre kind of alluded to, like I feel like Bieniemy could be a sense of like redemption for Rivera, but also for like a Bieniemy moment in that like I believed in him and look what he's doing type of deal, similar to how he was adamant that Carson Wentz was his guy for the reasons that he outlined, whether or not like he was right or wrong. All right, so I don't know what's going on with AJ right now. All right, so I guess I'll circle back and maybe we can finish that one. But Dre, so we know about Bieniemy, and now we know about Greg Roman. What's your idea on Roman being a commander OC? Like, do you have if it comes down to Bieniemy or Roman, do you have a problem if Roman is selected?
No, I know a lot of fans have been kind of down on Roman because of his stint with the Ravens, but I thought Roman did what you had to do, as far as with Lamar Jackson, and you scheme that offense around his skill set. That's what a lot of offensive coordinators you want in a guy. Now, there's certain times where Lamar Jackson just doesn't see the field well. I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, he doesn't scheme wide receivers open," but I think that's a myth. I mean, I've seen wide receivers running open. I mean, even Lamar Jackson has made big plays with wide receivers wide open, but he doesn't always see the field. That's not Lamar's strong suit. Lamar's strong suit is his legs and making plays with his legs. So people look at an offense like that and they see it as an indictment on the offensive coordinator. I mean, it was kind of like the same thing in 2012 when we had RG3, when Kyle Shanahan pretty much created that whole offense, which is kind of new to the NFL in a sense when he came out, but he created that offense for RG3. And a lot of people were pissed off with Kyle Shanahan at the time because they were saying, "Oh, well, RG3 could do just more than that." But as it turned out, and you see how RG3's career turned out, that was the best point in his career, probably his best path to success. So you have to kind of look at Greg Roman and Lamar Jackson's situation in the same light. Like, Greg Roman created an offense that really highlighted Lamar Jackson. I mean, the guy won an MVP in this offense. So you can't just tell me that, the offensive coordinator deserves no credit for any of that, or he's a bad hire. I think Greg Roman is very creative when it comes to run game schemes. He probably is the best in the business at that in a sense. So if he's coming in, the question is, what kind of is this offense going to be tailored to Sam Howell? Are you bringing a guy in? And those are the questions I have. But I mean, you could do far worse than a Greg Roman.
Yeah, like I think of the caliber of Alex Smith, like in the early like Greg Roman years, like when his name kind of started ringing, obviously with that San Francisco offense. And I think the best thing that kind of shows the caliber, and I'm not even speaking on detail, this is all surface level. I haven't done no deep dive on Greg Roman. I kind of understand the type of offense that he runs, but I don't know it in detail. But my point is, like, Alex Smith was a certain mold. He wasn't like the Tyrod Taylor that he got in Buffalo. He wasn't the Colin Kaepernick that he got a couple months later. And while the Shanahan introduced the read option the RPO and all that stuff into the NFL, like, Greg Roman adapted. And he's also not the Lamar Jackson. But you look at Sam Howell and you look at Alex Smith, and you kind of understand that both these guys have some mobility to them, but they're also not the Colin Kaepernick. They're also not the Lamar Jackson. You can find a way and kind of have this sense of adaptation from a coordinator who's been able to withstand the different changes in NFL offenses for over 10 years. And it's constantly been a top 10 rush offense in the NFL. And I believe I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I'll just say top 10 rush offense and maybe top 5 rush offense every single time he's been a coordinator. So there is some adaptation that shows from different types of quarterbacks that he's still going to be able to get the job done on the ground, but also maybe even have a better shot from an overall perspective now that he has some receivers that he can work with if he was to be in Washington. AJ, you got the floor. I know you've been going in and out, but what's your thoughts on? We could wrap it all up in Bieniemy and Greg Roman, and we can continue on.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the Eric Bieniemy situation, when you see so many news outlets, especially heavy NFL insiders such as the Ian Rappaports, the Adam Schefters, kind of alluding to Eric Bieniemy to Washington, that kind of tells you everything that you need to know, that this is pretty much a done deal. I think the Greg Roman thing kind of threw people for a loop, but I'm expecting possibly Greg Roman to join this staff as a running game coordinator. I don't really see him being added to any other staff of new hires in the league, anything of that nature. And when you typically hire your OC, you let them bring in the guys, especially a guy of Eric Bieniemy stature. There's so many different connections there, whether it be Andy Reid and Ron Rivera relationship and voucher for EB. Another tidbit is Martin Mayhew and Eric Bieniemy are frat brothers, part of Omega Psi Phi. You know how they get down, especially those black frats. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a done deal. Like I stated, I just believe that Greg Roman probably joins the staff as a running game coordinator alongside EB. I don't feel like Ron is trying to be Superman or anything of that nature, as we've seen him do with Carson Wentz. I just think that was a bad take of even bringing him on board. I think my main thing is I don't believe that. Excuse me, my bad. I don't believe that Sam Howell is QB number one. If you're going to go all in, full court press, and interview all these OCs, and ultimately the goal was to get to Eric Bieniemy, you're just waiting to see how it played out, whether he get the job with the Indianapolis Colts or when he was free to interview based upon teams being in the Super Bowl, not being able to interview. I don't see Sam Howell being that QB1. I just can't sit back and think that that's Ron's plan. Like, your coaching career is on the line. Like, you ain't even play that man during the season for real. Last game don't really count in my eyes because you playing for nothing. You didn't even open up the playbook fully with him to even say, like, hey, we got a good gist of, how he could play. He threw the ball 30 plus times. He ran 10 times, whatever the case is. Like, you ain't get none of that. And even during the season, when asked by a media reporter, what's the deal, I guess, with the quarterback situation? I don't remember the exact quote, but Ron Rivera is like, quarterback. You need a quarterback. So if you feel like that, how can you now try to sell to us that Sam Howell's that guy? I just think he's taking a different approach than what they did last year, where they were all out in the media kind of saying to everyone, hey, we need a quarterback. And they were so desperate that they got fleeced by the Indianapolis Colts by taking on Carson Wentz's contract and also trading capital when he was going to be released. Kind of similar to the Derek Carr situation, just it wasn't $40 million, it was 28. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out after they acquire Eric Bieniemy. I expect him to be determined as the OC by tomorrow. But I'm not believing the Sam Howell thing, because it's like there's nobody else on the roster. And then if you say you're bringing in competition, it's like right now the quarterback room is not even designed to support a quarterback of Sam Howell's nature in this situation. Like, there's no veteran presence.
Well, all right, yeah. I'm about to say, because I think the thing is, though, because let's be clear, like we know that the quarterback room isn't done, but like I think that the context of the whole situation also was he's giving them opportunity, but he also, matter of fact, here it is. I think when you give Sam Howell that opportunity to compete for QB1, but you're giving him, like, you're letting him start out in that spot and he has to earn it. I think the biggest thing is understanding who that QB2 is that's going to come in here and compete. But it's not, I don't see the likes of it being like those veterans, like the mid-tier or elite quarterbacks, that you can't do that. But who are the guys that you can risk coming in here that can be okay serving as a backup, but also compete for that starting role and push Heineke? It's also weird. Like, and I'll add this point. It's weird from a standpoint of you have a young quarterback in your building. Fellas, if you're going to commit to a quarterback, matter of fact, Jay Gruden said it best. I heard him on Ben Standing's podcast. He said it best. He said, if you're going to go with these younger guys, do not hide it. Do not like try to disguise it in a quarterback battle, man. Invest in the guy from start to finish, because what are you doing if you're sharing reps with multiple quarterbacks because you want to figure out if this rookie or this second year guy is going to be your guy. How about you just go all in and figure out instead of beating around the bush from a quarterback competition? Because odds are, who do you think is going to get it? You're not going to bench Howell at that point. But that's kind of where my head is at. Like,
but I mean, we've also seen how quarterback competitions, quote unquote, have went under Ron Rivera.
Like, I'm saying they're not real.
Same thing.
Real.
He said the same thing with Dwayne Haskins. He said the same thing with Heineke and Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's not a real thing. You feel me? Like it doesn't exist, because at some point you're going to have to give somebody more of the snaps and have them take that leadership role. So it's not a real thing. That's where I'm sitting back. Like, there's no veteran on the open market that you could bring in that could compete with Sam Howell. That just doesn't make sense. And especially if you already pushing that narrative in the media about him being the guy with the opportunity, it's like, why would I sign here if I already feel like you're not even open to a competition? You're already giving this person the job. Essentially, you're just saying they got to fuck up in order for me not to go with them. Like that's not a competition.
It's fixed.
So that's where that's why I'm like the whole narrative just doesn't make sense to me, man. Because it's like, if you went all out for a quarterback last year with Carson Wentz because you felt so close, now this year you were even closer to making the playoffs, even amidst the poor OC play call, and even you as a head coach, your decisions that you made, the quarterbacks that you had to utilize during the season, you were 2 games away from making the playoffs. You're telling me that you're not going to try to push forward for another quarterback. You're now gonna revert and use a 5th round pick that only played 1 game to be that extra push, and then say we're gonna build around him. I mean, the only thing you really would be building essentially would be an offensive line, but you have the weapons. you have the weapons at running back and wide receiver, and even at tight end to possibly unleash. So it's like you're gonna just not even know what you're getting from this quarterback.
Well, AJ, what's the path like for you? Now, I'm not saying I disagree with what you're saying, because you make good points, but what's the realistic path that Ron and his team can take to get a guy that's a viable starter? Like, he's starting over Sam Howell this season. Like, what's the path this season?
Well, I mean, right now we got Derek Carr that's a free agent. He can sign with the team right now. Like, I know Maul don't want to hear it, but I don't think Derek Carr is bad. Like, let's compare Derek Carr to Carson Wentz. Like, it's night and day. Like, we're talking about Carson Wentz is a bottom tier quarterback in my eyes. I've said that from jump. I didn't expect it to be any different. Derek Carr legitimately could go in some people's top 10, and that's without having multiple wide receivers. That's without having a real offensive line. That's also without having a defense to support him in his entire career. Like, his entire NFL career, he hasn't had a defense to really back him up. He's kind of had to play somewhat of hero ball in some cases. I mean, you got Devontae Adams this year, but prior to that, has he really had a number one prior? I mean, aside from Amari Cooper. But I mean, how long did they even keep them together? Maybe 2 years? Like him and Crabtree together for 2 years? Something like that. I mean, the AFC West is completely different than when those pairs were playing together too. Like, it wasn't Mahomes out there. It wasn't a Justin Herbert. It's completely different. I think you put him in the mix with this team, they definitely would be an ascending team. And then those pieces that you could add to the squad to make it better still would be offensive line depth at cornerback. But I mean, of course, it's hard. It's hard to focus on like the Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson possible trades, because those are things that you have to move capital for, and they may not happen. But there's a guy clearly on the open market. I don't anticipate him going to the Saints. So his teams are pretty limited. Like, it's either Washington, Tampa, Carolina if they want to jump out there.
Or the Jets too, right? I mean, they're in the conversation for every quarterback.
The Jets could jump out there too, but it's
the Titans too. They about to cut that boy Tannehill.
I can't.
Malik Willis.
I don't see him going to Tennessee.
Hey Dre,
but-
you know I'm a fan of Malik Willis, bro. But I was dead ass wrong about him starting year 1. And I don't see that man starting in year 2 or maybe even year 3. They need somebody right now.
That's where I was last year.
So it's like, but Washington also needs somebody right now too. They can't be playing this game like you have players that you have coming up on contract extensions. You got big time decisions to make with Sweat, Young, all that. You can't sit here and play around with your roster, and that's what I feel like. That's where the malpractice of Ron Rivera is kicking in. If he truly believes the Sam Howell shit, it's like, dog, you cannot jeopardize this team in this magnitude. If you feel that way, then go ahead and go to Hawaii, Cali, or North Carolina and just kick back and relax and don't even take on this job any further.
I got 2 routes, bro. Dre, you asked for alternative routes, and I want to be clear. Like Sam Howell route is my number 1 route, but there's also another way. It's not, and that's the thing too. Like I don't think it's just Sam Howell or veteran starting, like unquestioned starter. I don't think those are the routes that they can go. Like there's even more avenues, and I think the other avenue is going through the draft. You don't have to get a first round quarterback. But if you did, Anthony Richardson would be the one that you would probably entertain given the position that you're in, meaning Washington. Secondly, you don't have to go first round, and you can go mid round options, or maybe even second or third round, or figure out like how to get a quarterback in those early rounds, but not with your first pick, because that first pick is so essential. You can go cornerback or offensive line, however which route you want to go. But I think there's multiple avenues to kind of embrace this competition thing, or if you want to upgrade and invest in a guy, getting that first round quarterback would be the route to go. And also, AJ, by that point, you never know. The new ownership may be in, and it may influence the route that they go, depending on how early they get in, because that draft is in April. The new ownership, the update or whatever we may come to know may end up happening in March at some point. So you never know which route they decide to go. But I think that going the veteran route, my ultimate thing is, and the reason why I say no to Derek Carr, despite how I feel about his skill set, I'm not entertaining any mid-tier option that is like a product of somebody else's team. And I'm not entertaining any quarterback in free agency in terms of the unquestioned starter, unless you are that Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Geno Smith. Amani, I saw you. I'm in favor of entertaining Geno Smith. Those are the ones.
Why though? Like you still gonna have to pay Geno.
But no, what I'm saying is, I matter of fact, you know what's even just to kind of, I love the way Geno threw the ball this year, but I'm gonna just take a scale back. I'm gonna just say Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson for my unquestioned QB1s. Those are the guys that I'm interested in paying if you have to go that route. But even still, like the amount of money that's going to be absorbed into acquiring those guys, the amount of assets that's going to be acquired or required to acquire those guys, I don't think that's even worth it in the position that you're in. Like fully invest into the people that you have here, get that team right. And I hate how that sounds because people have been saying that for years, but I literally mean like you got to figure out like who this quarterback is on your roster, whether it's the rookie or the second year player in Sam Howell that you get, but not a veteran, because those guys that shelf life isn't going to last long here in Washington. There is no elite traits from some of these guys, man. It's just not worth it. It's eventually it may work out for 1 year, may work out for 2, but it's not going to withstand.
So Mual, I guess question is, if they go the Howell route and it doesn't work, then what's the plan next year? And do you really need an elite quarterback, or do you just need an above average quarterback?
But the plan is before. I was going to say I wanted to actually jump on that. Actually, AJ, what you described is kind of a good situation for Washington, because you got to think, if Ron is going the Sam Howell route this year and it fails, Ron is out. So you got a new coach coming in and maybe, whole new front office and everything, and they get to shape this offense into their image and they get the quarterback they want. And if the Sam Howell experiment fails, I'm assuming this team's probably a 5-6 win team, maybe. You're in position to draft a good quarterback next year in a better quarterback draft than this year's quarterback draft. So, I mean, hey, that's why I say it's kind of a no-lose situation as a fan right now, because if they go out and do good, they have a great season, great. Sam Howell looks good. Hey, you identify the guy. Sam Howell doesn't look good. You fire Ron, you get the new coach, his new GM, whatever. They go out and they find their guy, and you're not handcuffing the next staff to a guy already on the roster, which has been the Achilles of Washington. Just about every regime change, someone has had to come in and pretty much be, hooked to a guy that they didn't leash their wagon to. So this will be a complete different situation, and actually a refreshing situation if it happens out that way you described, AJ.
Who's to say that Sam Howell doesn't work? Like Sam Howell could work and Ron still gets fired. Like that can also take place too.
I mean,
like,
he's getting fired. He's getting fired regardless. Like I said, he could win the Super Bowl. He's still getting fired.
Well, I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. You can make a playoff game. You can make a playoff appearance.
Even if he make the playoffs, he's getting fired because that's not their guy. They spent this money. They're not gonna keep him around no matter what happens.
And just overall, like that, and that's kind of just all I'm saying in the sense of like the head coach spot and Sam Howell. Like Sam Howell can still be a good quarterback, and it can still work from the standpoint of going to him and allowing him to develop and take his lumps in there. But also the fact that the team ends up winning 6 or 7 games and it's not good enough for the owner. Rightfully so, and he's still going to clean house, or he's just going to elevate Eric Bieniemy and allow him to do his thing. Whatever the route is, there can still be a way where like Justin Herbert, like what? It was 2 straight years where he didn't make a playoff appearance, and he still had like they knew they had some dogs on offense. They still just weren't winning. And they got some defensive players this year, and they still weren't that good. Even though they made the playoffs this year, but you get the point. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like there's so many different avenues that can work out for Washington if they go the Sam Howell route, and they still may not win it. It still works out for Washington, or it still can. We talked about Derek Carr. I think that's kind of one. Let me ask you, Dre, before I even move on from this. Are you cool with the Derek Carr idea? Because I know you were kind of entertaining both AJ and my side, but where are you at on this?
For me, I'm worried about the money because I'm looking at Derek Carr. I'm wondering what he's commanding. I don't hate the quarterback. I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but are you paying him Kirk Cousins money? Because if you're paying him Kirk Cousins money, I wonder where else you can start to upgrade the team in free agency, because we got holes to fill. Like I'm looking at the draft and I'm just like, we have to go OL heavy and secondary heavy. Like those are my 2, areas that I really want to upgrade this roster at. And I'm not sure how much you can do that through the draft, especially getting like quality starters, year one. I mean, they had a good draft last year, but every draft is different year to year. But you still have to spend something in free agency. And we kind of saw that burned us last year with Carson Wentz. They had the Carson Wentz on the books for $28 million, and they had to let go of Eric Flowers. You couldn't sign Brandon Scherf, even though I felt like they were going to bring him back regardless. But either way, you decimated your offensive line because you couldn't pay anyone. And so you got to wonder, if you sign a Derek Carr, does he take away from you still needing to upgrade those weak spots on the roster? And if you aren't able to upgrade those weak spots on the roster, you're kind of looking at a similar season as last year, but except you're probably on the money for, or at least on the hook with Derek Carr for a couple of more years than you were with Carson Wentz. So that's where I'm at with Derek Carr. I mean, I wouldn't hate the move, but I definitely wouldn't lean towards signing him. I'm with you more so in that I'm going with the Sam Howell route, and it's not because I like Sam Howell or I'm a big Sam Howell fan. It's just, to me, just the most logical or rational thing for, Ron Rivera going into his last year, or at least the year we think is going to be his last.
It's his last goddamn year. We're going to say that right now. All right, so let's go ahead and transition to some other things, man. During Super Bowl week, this was crazy because I don't think I ever – so it's a 2-parter. But Sean Payton – acknowledged that there was a couple owners or potential owners for the Commanders who, reached out to him and kind of, asked him, if he would be willing to take the job if they became owner. First thing when I thought of that was like, that's very interesting. But secondly, like, damn, I wonder if these same owners or same potential owners end up taking over and end up winning the bid for the Commanders. Because what the hell is going to happen mid-March, end of March, whenever it actually officially happens? What the hell is going to happen? I still lean that Washington. I mean, Ron is safe for 2023. I still believe that, but I also can't account for two or at least one potential owner that can come in pretty soon and make some changes. And one being, matter of fact, I want to get y'all thoughts on that one right now, because I want to circle back to this thing that I heard today. That I was like, damn, this thing really makes sense. What did y'all think about like Sean Payton kind of like hinting to the fact that, or not even hinting, just flat out saying, people asked if he would take the job. Dre, on mute.
Sean Payton made things really awkward for Ron Rivera. Just the case, like you said, whoever that owner, I think is probably Josh Harris. I'm not sure, but if it's Josh Harris, he buys the team. Let's say he wins the team. That's an awkward first meeting with Ron Rivera, because Ron Rivera knows, that report about the whole Sean Payton thing. So you got to wonder, will Ron want to stick around and work for him, or if the pressure would be too much, or if Josh Harris comes in and be like, man, look, I just don't want you as a coach, man. I'm coming in, I'm firing you. But I mean, yeah, I just thought Sean Payton made it really awkward. I'm not sure what his motivation was for saying that. I mean, he was, flat out and blunt about it, but yeah, that would be really awkward, man. I'm not even sure if, that could work out, if that under that scenario, that owner that, wanted Sean Payton, I think it was a Rex Ryan combo as well, if he was to come in, and win the team and he's Ron's boss in March.
Oh my goodness, Rex Ryan. Hey, so listen, yeah, so like part of the second part to this was, I heard on the radio today, it was a theory, it wasn't like a report or a rumor. What if that same person who did that bidding to Sean Payton is also like somebody within the organization already, and like doing the bidding, like, hey, we're gonna go ahead and get Eric Bieniemy in here now, and I'm gonna elevate him when I take over. I thought, and like on the idea of AJ talking about possibly Greg Roman coming in, like Greg Roman may be his OC, Bieniemy the head coach, and he get his new staff in here or something. I don't know. Like it dawned on me that like it could possibly be the fact that somebody's already like kind of pulling some strings in there. Not necessarily my words, but the fact that like that theory was produced, it's kind of interesting to me. Like, damn, what if Bieniemy is the play to become the head coach in just a couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't have a problem with Sean Payton's interview. I think he just said couple of the groups that are intending or have. Matter of fact, he said couple of the groups that have already submitted bids for the team asked me if I would take the job if they won. Like,
submitted bids. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like it's not just one ownership group or one owner, it's multiple. That could be 2, that could be 3, that could be 4. Like we have no clue, but they definitely don't rock with the fact that if they bought this team, Ron would be leading them. So there's a possibility that if everything plays out how the timelines have been said from, certain pundits within the league, they could possibly get rid of Ron in March when it's finalized, or it could happen when the bid is accepted. They could have a conversation like, "Hey, we want to go in a different direction," because they could see the vision differently. Like, I think we're okay with this Sam Howell process because it's Ron Rivera being the head coach. But if it was a new head coach in here, nobody would be okay with this Sam Howell process at all. But because it is Ron, it's like, hey, just go for it. You feel me? But if you're spending $6-7 million or $8 million, whatever the case is, you're like, I'm not about to buy this franchise and then we start in the 5th round quarterback. Like, how can I start trying to make my money back? How can I bring people back into these seats? How can I sell merch? How can I sell the ideal that things are a bit different here?
Sam Howell got a little brand name to him, bro.
Nah, man. But
what they call them, the Howellians, bro.
I don't know what they call them. Maybe I said million instead of billion. My bad. But yeah, it's like you gotta put your stamp on this new project that you're taking on. Like we just seen it happen in the NBA. Matt Ishaba, who ended up becoming officially the owner of the Suns last week, made that move at 1 a.m. while we sleep on the East Coast to acquire Kevin Durant. You know, his first day on the job as not even the job, but the first day as the owner. Like you got to make that splash. And I just feel like Ron is not whoever the new ownership group's guy. And that's not somebody that they see even working with. Like what would be the point of building a relationship with someone that you plan on getting rid of anyways?
Let me ask you one question. And I guess this is it for me. Felt like, why do you have to do something right now? Like why right now when the ownership is the foreseeable future and beyond that? What does right now in 2023 in March or April or May, what does that right now mean when you have a long time to plan outline your steps and outline your plan and develop your plan? What does right now mean for a new owner when they have time?
I mean, yeah, you have time as an owner, but you also don't have time to win over this fan base when you also are going through.
But the fan base been bad for 2020. Like we know, like the fan base been bad for down bad for over 2 decades. So what's another year?
But the fan base is waiting for change. They're looking for some reason to have optimism. Like there's no reason right now. Like Ron Rivera has not had a winning season in his entire tenureship here. And now if you're trying to sell me the idea of this 5th round quarterback that we as fans haven't even seen play for real, we've seen him in 1 game, 18 pass attempts. There's what are you really selling me there? It's like, if I'm going to buy this team, I want to put my foot down and clean house. Like I don't want any of Ron Rivera's individuals that he's brought into the mix there. I want to bring in my own GM. I want to bring in somebody that really knows football in and out and start hiring the right people so that we can build out our entire staff, not just coaching, but player personnel, cap management, whatever the case is, so that we are prepared to go even further down the line. Because as I stated, you got a lot of players that are coming up on new contracts. You got to make some of these decisions. You got to move swiftly with certain things. Either you're going to trade this guy or you're going to keep him and try to retain him. You're going to franchise tag this guy, whatever the case. We got Chase Young. We got Sweat. We got Payne that has no contract. Some people mention Cam Curl. You know, like you got to make decisions with other guys on the roster, whether to keep them, release them. The Logan Thomas, the Curtis Samuels, the Fullers, whatever. And it's like, why fake a relationship? You may not want to do it. I feel like in Denver, by the time that they ended up winning their bid official, well, not winning their bid, but by the time it became official with them as ownership, it was like close to training camp. You couldn't fire coach then, but I bet damn sure if they really had hands on with the Nathaniel Hackett process, they would have fired him in March. They wouldn't have waited until the season. Like they would have wanted to pick their own guy. In this case, they didn't pick their own guy. That's why it was so easy for them to move on from him, especially when he's losing and it doesn't look good. Like maybe they were all in on the Russell Wilson decision because he's been an elite quarterback in this league, and it's not hard to sell that and sell the idea of Russ, who's a corporate guy. But I mean, when you bring up this point and we hear the things that Sean Payton says, it kind of makes you think like, damn, if this sale does possibly go through in March, is Ron really safe?
Well, let's go ahead and make some predictions right quick. Dre, I want to get your thoughts, and then we'll get up out of here with some predictions. I'll ask the chat. Now, predictions on OC, Bieniemy, Greg Roman, other. And where are y'all thoughts at with Ron Rivera? Do you all think that Ron Rivera is going to be around to see the 2023 season? Dre, matter of fact, we can just start with you. Like your thoughts on this conversation, but obviously Ron Rivera being here for 2023, and what about the OC?
Yeah, I was actually going to introduce an angle that no one is talking about with ownership. What if ownership comes in here and they don't like the coach centric model? Like, that's not their model. Like, I want to create my own model when I get here, or maybe I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, hey, to Ron and his staff, I'm not for coach centric. I want things run through this type of landscape. Now, unless you all are going to kind of conform to this, I'll give you a year to get on board with this. Or if you're not going to conform to this, then hey, I'm giving you a chance to step down. I mean, I think that's a realistic angle right there for an owner to come in and say that, because that's a model that he didn't create, and that may not be something he envisions as a path to success. Maybe he wants more of a say in things, or maybe he has someone he trusts, fully with personnel decisions and everything, as far as he's coming in with this guy, and this is a guy I want you all to listen to. I mean, or what if he comes in and he says, okay, I'll keep Ron for a year, but Martin Mayhew and Marty Herney, they got to go, and I'm bringing in my guy over top of you, Ron. I mean, these are complicated angles that can kind of come into play with new ownership. So that's why it's kind of hard to predict Ron right now, stand for the 2023. I think, it's probably easier, or it's easier to lean him, being here and say, yeah, he will be here for sure. But that's an unknown. It's a lot of unknown angles with this ownership. That's why a lot of this stuff is kind of surprising to me that, a guy like Eric Bieniemy is considering here. And, the conspiracy theory angle that you brought up earlier, with people saying that someone in the organization may already be kind of, bringing him in to, I guess, step in and be the head coach when new ownership comes in. I mean, who knows? But right now, I think it's safer to say that Ron will be back. But again, it's a lot of unknown variables right now with the ownership in play. But my prediction right now, I might be cheating a little bit with this prediction. I might be cheating a little bit, but Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator, run game coordinator, is Greg Roman. And thank you, AJ.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say Ron Rivera. My prediction is Ron Rivera is here in 2023. And I'm going to say that because Dre stole my thunder, I'm gonna just say Bieniemy. Bieniemy is the OC. Those are my predictions. AJ, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to Ron in 2023 season, I really don't know. It just boils down to if we know someone won a bid in the next week or two, and it's going to be finalized by the NFL and their committee in March. I think Ron has to continue to do his job as it is. One factor that we haven't really focused too much on our platform is this budget. Like, I've never really heard of like a ownership and a head coach openly, well, not necessarily ownership coming out there and saying it, but speaking about a budget at the end of the year. I think that's probably why we may not be hearing a Derek Carr's name involved so heavily as of right now, whatever. Mm-hmm. But if that's the case, the budget is pretty much crippling also Ron Rivera and what he possibly wants to do to improve this team at QB. So they have to go all in on a Sam Howell for the time being. But yeah, I really don't know what's gonna happen. I hope what happens is that Ron is fired once this new ownership group wins the bid. Like, I mean, just being like, it'd be different if we had like a winning coach here. Or I felt like it was a winning culture that was trending in the right direction. I don't see none of that from Ron. So it was like I could give two damns about his job. And I feel like Sean Payton felt the same way. That's why he was comfortable saying, like, hey, they already asked me, multiple groups have asked me if I would take the job. So they already have said that they don't give two damns about you. And they were willing to even move draft capital, and also pay this man close to $20 million a year to be the head coach. So what does that tell you? Like, they don't like what they're seeing out of Ron Rivera. Like, in their early stages of their bidding process, they don't like it. So if someone ends up winning this bid and proceeds forward, Ron may get fired. He may get canned in March, because do you want Ron and his group drafting? Do you want him still hands-on with this product that you now are investing in? So yeah, I mean, that's just my point on that. And now going on to the coordinator situation, I expect a duel of Eric Bieniemy as offensive coordinator and Greg Roman as run game coordinator. I think Ron is trying to change some of his ways and realizing he needs to bring in a stronger staff of individuals with credibility on the offensive side of the ball, especially. And EB, not only can he call plays and dial things up well, but adding that partnership in the run game, especially with Greg Roman, I think that's a perfect marriage on the offensive side of the ball. He can kind of just be hands-free and just oversee it, and hope that it turns out for the best, especially if they can't financially pursue a quarterback like a Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, or Lamar Jackson.
Appreciate everybody who checked in, man. Hulk, Monty, Corey, Amani, Obets, and obviously Mike that just checked in, and everybody else that's watching live. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure that subscribe button. We definitely appreciate that. Hey, look, man, we got some guests on the way. We got a couple guests on the way. I can't wait for these conversations. And we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there. But we're going to try to start getting them in next week. And maybe next week we're back at our regular time, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Dre, AJ, man, y'all boys say, what y'all gonna do now that the football? Well, you got Wizards. I know, Dre. Did you stay up for the Wizards game last night? I know you did.
Right. Only time I watch the Wizards now is if I bet on them. If I bet on the Wizards, okay, I'll watch them. But no, I don't watch the Wizards, man, until they change something. Nah, I
remember the days you was getting all smack after this show, like, hey man, I gotta watch that Wizards game.
Yes, that was me. Now it's like, hey, Wizards playing tonight? Damn, I didn't even know.
Oh man, okay. Look, man, y'all boys take care, dog. Enjoy the rest of y'all week.
Hey, man, we got a lot of football, dog. Like the way the schedule is now, and especially with this team,
yes,
it's not even gonna feel like football ain't really going on NFL wise. Because I mean, next week is the combine.
I'm about to say, the combine is this
next
month.
Week.
Yes, always in the end of February.
I thought it was in. Oh, damn!
The combine next week. You got free agency kind of right after that. Legal tampering, and then with this
ownership shit, we got the ownership change coming up.
The possible ownership stuff, like
we got a busy.
It's not even gonna feel like an off season for real.
Nah, that's a fact, bro. That is a fact. Shit, let's get into it then, man. Hey, y'all take it easy, Dre, AJ, everybody in the chat, y'all take it easy, man. We back next Tuesday, 7 p.m. sharp. Peace.